am Dr. Luz Maria.
And I am Coach Lisa Frank. And we have here. We have the pleasure of having our first African American U.S. Senate nominee for Indianapolis with us, Dr.
Valerie McCray. What a joy.
Thank you for having me. This is fun. I get to sit with two sisters, and get to chill out for a minute. This is great.
It's such an honor, especially right now, Dr. Valerie McCray, having a president nominee and a senator nominee of two women of color.
Yeah.
Like, talk about it and
What a
be
time.
Yes. So
What
it's
a
a joy.
time.
And today's topic is about challenges women face in the workforce, although we are much more curious about you, but we'll probably take a little bit of time to ask you some questions about that.
So tell us about your journey and why you're running.
Just to give you a little background, I'm a psychologist.
Ah,
That's awesome.
Yes.
We're in the same
me
field.
too. Me too.
So we're really sisters on two
Absolutely,
levels. Right.
absolutely. And so, of course, you know that, especially being an African-American psychologist, we're pulled in so many directions. And I tend to not take that road less traveled and work in these in very intense environments, such as prisons and with the military and with the Stop the Violence movement here. And I have a private practice as well. And mostly these are crisis generated and also trauma generated phone calls. So after a while, you'll see a pattern, whereas you think, you know what, a lot of this could be avoided. A lot of this could be softened if we dealt with matters at the top, whether it's, affordable housing or whether it's pay scales or whether it's just abuse, domestic violence, and that sort of thing. If we dealt with things at the top as far as policy, we would have fewer crises at the bottom, at least a softer landing anyway.
I so agree with you, Dr. Valerie. I'm a psychologist too, and I've been in my field for over 30 years now.
Yes.
And I work from the clinic setting to psychiatric hospitals, from teaching, and there is such a thing as you're saying, these patterns, and things can be avoided. I know Lisa and I have spoken about this, suggesting to our women who do not have any husbands and, the impact that would make. So,
And for me personally, if I can interject, I've also been in the field for over 30 years. I started out in addictions, working in methadone clinics, private practice, and also incarceration, and just that transition that people make from the prisons system. And right now I'm working on my master's in social work, so social justice is at the forefront of my mind too,
Yes. Yeah.
and the changes that need to go to the top, as you've stated.
Yes.
And it's all about fighting for those and speaking up for those who can't speak up for themselves.
Absolutely. And of course, those of us who get into this field, we understand what's going on, but we also have to be careful that we don't absorb everything, so we could be, on point the next day, or actually the next client that walks in the door. You have to be ready for whatever comes in. And I know that with me dealing with addictions and the things that we deal with out there, I know it's very tiring.
Yes,
so
it is.
running for office for me was practical in that I could handle more, because that feeling of I'm not doing enough.
Exactly.
There's so much more to do. There's so many people to affect. What is the best way to do it? So for me, it's a practical decision to go to Washington and affect the most people that I can affect by stopping some of the nonsense at the top that's coming down, and just changing things from the bottom. While everyone else is working from the bottom up, let somebody go up to the top to throw down some ropes to the rest of everybody.
I
and
love
say,
that.
Let's you guys push up and let me pull up, and let's see what we can get done. And I think that combination is what's needed. We haven't had anyone, especially from Indiana, at the top realm to go up at the top and throw the rope down. It hasn't been that way for our communities.
So if you were to throw this first rope down for us, to climb out, what would be one of those policies that, having your experience, would be one of the policies that you really want to focus on?
Let's start with something simple and basic.
Okay.
We've been at a $7.25 minimum wage for how many years now? A couple of decades or more? That makes no sense.
California's already doubled. You guys.
Yes.
Isn't that
$20 now in California.
Yes.
Oh, 20 now?
20, just a new law, just came into effect.
Okay, we're past double.
Right.
We're almost triple.
So it speaks to the attitude
Yes.
of the leadership. We've had the same leadership or the same, we've been a supermajority in the Republican side across the Indiana for a while now with a supermajority Republican. And we can see how people at the bottom echelon have not been able to make those inroads into good housing or buying a house or actually getting out of those negative loopholes that are waiting for people that are not at that economic level. There's so many pitfalls. It's very expensive to be broke. Trust me,
It really
it's
is.
so expensive to be struggling. And it's $7.25 an hour. Even if we doubled that, we know that that's not even near enough. It takes about, to even afford anything, you're talking about maybe $50,000 a year. And this is not getting us there at $7.25. Even
Rents are higher.
right. And look at the effects. If someone's working 3 or 4 jobs, or 2 or 3 jobs, or 80 hours a week, who's helping with the kids and who's helping with these other situations? So it's a trickle effect in that anytime you keep people struggling like that, always stressed out, always wondering about how they're going to pay this bill or that bill, no one should have to live like that day in and day out, especially if they're working every day. So those are just some general ideas. That's just, we can start at the basics. Let's get the wages.
The wages.
And I call them breathable wages, and then when I say breathable, I mean that you can pay everything. You've got a little money to set aside. You don't need new tires this week. It seems like you always need tires when you get a little extra money.
Right.
You don't need tires. You don't need any of that. And you can actually
Breathe. I love it.
Yes, and then we
Yes.
know what happens when you can breathe to our mental health.
Right.
And the choices you're
right.
going to be making for your family, for yourself, therefore how it trickles into our
That's
community.
right.
absolutely.
right.
All that
And
has
I-
such a positive
I
effect.
love how you said throw the rope down and pull people up, because for the longest time, especially in certain cultures, you have that crab in the barrel mentality where
Right.
people are trying to find their way to up above their situation, and their own communities are pulling them back down. And so to have that attitude, it's a contagious attitude that other people will put language, they hear your language about it and catch on to that idea.
Yes, absolutely. And the crab in the barrel thing is real.
It is real.
It is very, very real. And somebody has to, the Democratic Party, I will have to say this, I did not go the route of climbing up one level at a time. I just sort of catapulted way over everybody and ran for the highest office you could run for.
Right.
And of course, that didn't probably bow well at first, and they did not think it took a few tries before we actually got to this point. But the fact of the matter is by the time you get through all that people clawing at you, you don't have the energy to do what you need to do once you get to the top, or you've made so many concessions, or you've made so many compromises that you might not be yourself by the time you get there. For me, it's like, okay, I'm going to go from a psychologist. Shoot, I'm smart enough. I've got a PhD. I'm just going to jump over all this because we need somebody at the top. And it's not like I stopped and asked for permission. I just did it. I just did
That
it.
takes something. It takes a brave woman to
It
really be a
does.
stand. And
it
I'm so excited to be part of just sharing this space with
Oh,
you.
thank you.
And one of the things that I wanted to ask you your take on is that for the longest time, women have been underpaid in the workforce, okay? And statistically, like right now, they're saying we get 63 cents to the dollar in comparison to men, okay? But it's been a long-standing problem. Do you think, I mean, we've just gotten DEI, I'm sorry, and now that's being threatened by a certain party that we won't mention. But, you know, and yeah, so it's been a longstanding problem. Do you think that we're making any headway?
Well, you're getting ready to make some headway.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, because you've got Kamala Harris that stepped up.
Yes.
You've got myself that stepped up.
Yes.
And I'll say this: we won 90 of the 92 counties, and I wasn't able to get around to all of those counties. And I ran against a older white male who was in the system. I think his dad and he was part of the whole Democratic system. But the women showed up for that primary, and we didn't win it by a little bit. We won it by a lot. So women right now are focused. They're a lot more focused than we've ever been as far as wanting equity, wanting the things that we need to make our lives work. They're wanting that. It didn't help that they took our rights to reproductive freedoms back 50 years. That didn't help, but that in some ways it has invigorated us to say, hey, wait a minute, we got to pull together, lock arms, and not only get that turned back, but we need to get everything to be equitable for women. And this DEA, this attack on DEI,
yes.
I find that to be so interesting, this attack, because that is the DEI, that conversation, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes.
That's what America should be about.
It really is.
And it's funny how that party, that group of, that part of the party, because it's not the whole party, it's that part of the party who has taken the best of the United States and turned it around to be something ugly.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that the word woke, they were able, I was like, how did they do that? To take being aware, because that's what woke means, right? Being aware of what's going on, your history and all this, to take being aware and turn that into a bad word.
Yes.
They're good at it. DEI is a good word. It's
It
beautiful.
is.
This is what we should all be about.
Yeah.
But they've turned it around. And the thing about it, we have to be more assertive and aggressive about, assertive and aggressive, and stop being on the defensive.
Yes.
The fact of the matter is that wealthy white males have had 350 years of affirmative action.
Yes.
They have. There's no question about it.
Yes.
They've had 350 years of affirmative action for their benefit. And now with little programming from DEI trying to penetrate some of this, trying to get a little of balance here, they have a problem with that.
They do. Right. And you know, one of the reasons I see is because the companies that are actually including the diversity training are actually being successful.
Yes.
We are now understanding the research that there is true good outcome. Absolutely. So if I am seeing that there is a good result out there that is going to impact me, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And yes, that is.
They feel threatened.
They do feel threatened.
Yeah.
They don't want that lead to be.
No.
They want to keep that lead no matter what. They want to keep that control. And the thing about it, if they were just to lock arms with the rest of them, they still will have everything they need as well. Their lives will be expanded.
We're not looking to take over the country and out, you know, and treat them the way they've treated us.
Exactly.
But you said something that I loved, and you said that you were coming up against someone who had a lot of, you know, background in politics, and again, you went against the odds, but you still showed up by a large margin, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it brought me back to thinking yesterday when Kamala chose Tim Walz, right? Because up until that point, everybody was talking about she should pick the Pennsylvania governor and she should pick the Arizona governor because they will give her a better edge. And I said last night when I found out she picked Tim Walz, I said, you know what? This makes the victory even better.
Okay.
And you just confirmed that because she didn't pick that likely who they said that she needs to win Pennsylvania or to win Arizona, and I believe she's going to win it anyway. But it's a better, like you said, your victory was that much sweeter.
Yes, it was because I think that, and it was a surprise to me too, But it was also, I will say on the spiritual level, it was also a request. It was, if I'm going to lose, okay, I'm going to lose. But if I'm going to win, let's not win by a little bit, Lord. Let's win by a lot.
Yes.
So that we can stop these conversations about, is she supposed to be here? Is she not supposed to be here? Let's make it clear to the party and everyone that, hey, this is what is supposed to happen right here, right now. So it was such a clear victory. They called that race, the polls closed at 6. They called that race around 6:20 or something, 20 minutes after the polls closed. I was pulling up signs, and from our last locations, because I just went by a couple places that were near my home and said, I better pick these signs up while I'm on my way home. And someone was congratulating me. I was like, what? Because I started to run home, get dressed, go to the next spot. But so they called it soon because it was clearly going to be a landslide. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And you know, one of the things I just love what you're saying, what you stand for. And like when we're talking about bringing pay to be, upgraded to something is more, it's not about one particular group, one minority. It's about equality. So it's not exclusion. It's really an inclusion, decision, policy making that will make a difference in the lives of everyone.
Absolutely. And they try to make you believe that it's going to affect businesses to pay people more, but how much money do they spend training people over and over again? How much money do they spend because people don't show up? It's hard to show up when your bill for a babysitter is more than what you're bringing in. How do you expect people to show up? How do you expect people to keep being dedicated if they're not getting paid enough to make their ends meet? So it will prosper everyone, including those businesses, to make sure their employees are paid well enough, and to make sure especially if they provide a little daycare on the side too, that would be really helpful.
And then again, research shows that that's a good outcome.
Absolutely.
It's like we're afraid of something we already know that works because somehow someone out there is really promoting the opposite. But if people really take the time to read and do their homework, what you're talking about, Dr. Valerie, is really the answer because we already have proof that it works.
Absolutely. And some of the companies that are coming from outside of the United States, I understand IKEA and a couple more places, they're offering daycare. They raise their price what they're paying people. That retraining people over and all this.
The cost is high.
The cost is high.
I've spoken to several people in HR, and they said retention is a much profitable margin than what it costs to retrain people. But if I'm underpaid, and I can speak from experience because I've been underemployed for a long time, and and every time I got to a job, I was always looking for that better job to gain a better salary. So you may hire people, but can you retain them? And if you can't retain them because your salary is too low, then that's going to affect you in the long run because it costs so much money now to get someone else to fill that position.
Absolutely. You're starting from scratch all over again.
Yeah.
And when you don't have that camaraderie, when you don't have that buy-in, you also are looking at other ways that your employees will sabotage your business because you're not committed to them. You would show them you were committed to them if you were to pay them and give them the time they need to off and those things that they need to make their lives work, but you're not showing any dedication to them, so they don't have any obligation to you, so you have a higher theft rate, you have a higher call-in rate, you have a lot of issues that you wouldn't have.
Sick pay,
All of that.
I'm just curious, like, what are the challenges you've had through your life in the workforce that all women can connect with you? Because sometimes we see somebody like you, we feel like, oh my gosh, she's out there, unreachable because she did that. But like once we know some of the things you have gone through, we say, oh my God, I'm going through that. Therefore, one day I can dream also to be running for senator like Dr. Valerie.
Oh my goodness, that is a loaded question. I am so normal. I make sure that I keep my Aldi's quarter at all times because I need that free card to make sure I get my groceries. I have
That's
to
awesome.
I have to compromise and and sometimes put stuff back out of the cart and I've been there. I mean, I really literally am comfortable shopping at Nordstrom's, but I'm more comfortable shopping at Goodwill sometimes too. I mean, whatever it is. The good thing is I do have an eye, so I can look at the Goodwill rack and like, oh, that's that right there is a Ralph Lauren. I can grab that. I have an eye for fabric and things like that, but I have learned to make ends meet and enjoy things, no matter how much I pay for things or whatever. It's a compromise. But there's, I go because I work on contract a lot. I work from contract to contract. There are times in between those contracts where it's just not ends aren't meeting. I have went, and I don't want to tell you. I'll be telling you how old I am. I guess people will be looking it up. But I have actually went several years at a time, and I don't want anybody to do this without health care. Period.
Wow.
Without have been able to afford to go to a doctor or whatever. I have been really, really blessed because it just didn't come back to haunt me so far. But not being able to pay that as a single woman contractor, my insurance paying bill is $700-800 a month or whatever. It's like, wait a minute, I don't have that.
No.
So there hasn't been any continuity in healthcare for me either. So now I think I'm pretty sure that I reached that criteria where I can get Medicare or whatever. Oh my God. I don't know whether that's a blessing or what. Because I even hate to say it.
It is.
But yes.
That we even made it because so many
made
people are not.
It is.
Oh
right?
my gosh.
And just even we've been talking about single mothers and those challenges that they face and trying to work and yet daycare is really expensive and sometimes you're working just to pay daycare, which is more than mortgage at times. And like even my daughter, she had to search the marketplace for healthcare insurance now that you mentioned that because her job was charging her for her and her daughter almost close to $1,000 a month.
Yes. Now, I don't know if you followed our campaign or not, but most people people know that I'm a really big advocate for Medicare for all. Okay. For a single single payment system that covers everyone here in the United States. Okay. I was a flight attendant years ago, so I've traveled the world, and I've had the blessing of working in Germany or flying in and out of Germany or having friends in Toronto or having friends around the country, and they're not paying these hospital bills. They're not paying these situations. Every time we try to start talking about that, the lobbyists and different people will come out in droves saying, this is going to be bad for America, bad for you. You're going to have waiting lines and all of this stuff. Well, we have waiting lists now and waiting lines now. We don't get to just jump and go to the doctors. Right. We have fewer doctors. Anyway, to make a long story short, I don't believe that we can continue to function as a nation without getting some sort of universal health care for everyone. Right. We've already shown that the whole insurance industry is costing us more and money. More and more, and we're paying more out of pocket and getting less and less for that. Yeah. And the prices of everything is going astronomically out of control. Yeah. And even the doctors that I know, they're like, we got to do something. And so much of our time is spent just in billing and getting and billing errors and getting stuff returned. And for me, I was like, you know what, just do direct pay. I don't care what you pay me, just direct pay so I don't have to worry about all this other, getting stuff returned and all that stuff is crazy.
As you're sharing, like I'm hearing two policies already that I'm really excited. Right. One of them you're talking obviously the increase the amount of money, and the other one is the health care. Yes. And just already alone there, I can see the difference of the impact it's going to create for mental health overall. So I've heard two policies. Yes. Is there another policy that you have under your sleeve that maybe I have not heard that is going to make a difference?
Especially mental health, because insurance companies aren't really paying a lot for mental health. I know where I'm from in Texas, they don't.
Yeah. One of the things that I when you are a mental health professional, it's like being it's so much a part of who you are. You just, you walk out, you're already doing this wherever you go. So sometimes I forget to remind people that the mental health portion of things are actually at the top of my priority list, because that's just how I live. I live in that mental health zone.
Yes.
So I sometimes forget to mention it, but of course it's the priority. It's a priority to make sure that we have mental health. This is how I really started this. Let me go back a little bit. Mental health, when I first started this journey, was a taboo word. No one wanted to talk about it. Even 5 or 6 years ago, no one wanted to talk about it. I had a campaign manager at the time, so whatever you do, don't mention mental health. I'm like, I'm a psychologist. I'll just mention I'm a psychologist. They'll know what I'm here for. But we did debate quite a bit because no one wanted to talk about it. Now we stayed out there. We kept the conversation out there as long as we could. And now everyone's talking about mental health. But of course, now we got to define, what do we mean by mental health? Because there are so many layers. And of course, you guys know it's so many layers.
Yes.
And what does that mean exactly? We've got mental illness, and we've got clinical level mental illness. We've got character disorders. And we're seeing that some of that play out in Washington, D.C. or wherever.
Because I'm not sure what it is now, but I know at one point I worked in an OBGYN office, and I could not believe that our troops who served this country, that they were only allowed 6 visits. 6 visits with TRICARE.
No,
and I couldn't believe it. This young lady came in and was expecting, and she had gone on 3 tours. But she was fine after the first 2, but the last tour, she saw her best friend get killed and someone else she was close to get killed. Yes. And when she came back, she was devastated, and she needed help. And I was talking to her about that, and she said, well, we're allowed 6 visits. And I said, that's you're just getting to know your therapist at that point.
Yeah, as a trauma-informed clinician, I can definitely say that it's just not possible. It's not at all possible. And it's just the impact of everything that is happening. Just even the mental health, working in the clinic. I actually left the clinic, and I did this because I can make more of an impact through being on Zoom as an individual, as a writer and a speaker. So I also took a different route. Because in the mental health clinic, as wonderful as it is, we spend more time writing our notes, writing information for the insurance, making sure all is done properly, so then the clinic can actually send the check so the money can arrive. And we're spend about our hour is actually spent about 40 minutes true with our client, because when you begin a session, as you know, it takes some time to open the session, and then it takes some time to close the session. So we only get really about 15 minutes to get to the hardcore of what's there. Right. And I know we're getting ready to wrap up. We got 3 more minutes, and I'm just like, okay, so much.
It will too fast.
Too fast to do this again, because we're just barely
touching the
surface on this. And there's so much to talk about, because we didn't get to talk about women's reproductive issues. And those of us who are in the mental health field know that there's more stress and more trauma related to not being able to access care than it is with actually having those particular procedures. The stress is when you can't.
And then turn around and be called a Catwoman because you can't produce a child.
All right.
We won't talk about that.
2 more minutes. Bring some wisdom to the listeners about what you're going to provide for this amazing state.
Well, we have a wonderful opportunity here to have a psychologist going into the Senate. Yes. That's a game changer in itself. To have someone who is actually connected to the community, who's actually connected to the mental health issues, because every last one of us knows someone that we're either afraid of or afraid for because of their mental health issues. So to have someone go to Washington who understands that is going to be a great benefit to not only Indiana, but all of the country as a whole, and actually internationally as well.
Yes.
This is a global issue. These are some global issues. Wisdom-wise, I just say, don't wait for permission to do the right thing.
Yes.
Just jump in there and do the best you can, and those things will circle around you to make sure you have the help you need when you get there.
Well, I'm going to say before we take it home that I'm going to keep up with you, even though I'm not living in your state. But when I started my master's in social work last year, I thought my main focus would be grief and crisis. But when I came to the course on social justice, it tugged on my heart to want to go to another level and make a difference. So I'm going to keep on following you.
Yeah, because I'm going to
so
need your help when you get
And
there.
you know what? I'm really excited. I'm actually from San Diego, California.
Yeah.
So the different voices, the intention is to bring voices from outside to in here to nourish all of us, and also being a clinical psychologist. I'm so excited, delighted to have you. I am going to keep an eye on you. I also was a human rights advocate for a while, wrote my thesis on that, my dissertation on that topic. So it is a pleasure. It is an honor to spend some time here with you.
So, do you want to tell our audience where they can find you so that they can follow you as well?
Super easy. ValerieMcCray.org. It's
McCray is M
McCray
or
is
M-A?
MCC.
MCC.
RAY.
Okay.
Yeah, MCCRAY.org. You'll find me on there, and it's easy. Just go on our website and volunteer.
Okay.
And then you can push that donate button too.
That
is
always
always helpful.
Yes, always helps.
But yeah, just follow the campaign and wish us well, and spread the word.
Yes.
That's when I say organically. That's what I mean. Call 10 people. Go through your Rolodex and make sure they call people as well and say, there's a sister running for U.S. Senate in the state of Indiana.
Yes,
absolutely.
I'll do that.
I would appreciate it. Thank you.
And I'll post it on my social media.
We'll
page
do that.
it
We'll post it on.
well.
We'll do that. So it
Thank you.
is such a great honor as from woman of color, Latina,
Oh, absolutely.
Mexicana. Also my immigrant community. So it is such a pleasure to share this space, and what a joy.
Thank you.
Take it
I
home.
am Dr. Luz Maria.
I'm Lisa Frank, and this is our U.S. Senate nominee here in Indiana,
Valerie
and this has
McCray.
this has been another great episode of
Different Voices.
Voices.